He has a history of aggression with peers and staff. He has broken noses, blackened eyes, threatening to rape and kill his sisters.
Too mentally ill to stand trial.
I think we're in agreement that he's probably competent in trial.
But not qualified to be hospitalized indefinitely.
It's every prosecutor's nightmare.
Tonight, we investigate a gap in Kentucky law that's allowing some charged felons to walk free.
Our investigation started 3 weeks ago after LMPD said an 8-year-old was raped by this man in Louisville's California neighborhood.
What police say happened in this Louisville backyard has shined a spotlight on a dangerous problem, a glaring gap in state law.
The neighborhood is hot. They are heated.
Heated because of a crime that happened in that backyard a couple weeks ago. An 8-year-old was playing on her iPad when she was beat in the head with a shovel and raped. Louisville police arrested this man and say he even admitted to the crime.
I don't know if you want to put it on the news, but I'd like to see him castrated.
He is 29-year-old Kane Madden, and prosecutors, mental health advocates, even the state, say his case shows a breakdown in Kentucky's criminal justice system.
I think he's not in touch with reality in the way most people are.
Time and time again.
He's right on the borderline of cognitive impairment.
Madden has been found incompetent to stand trial for years of crimes because of severe intellectual deficits.
I do find by a preponderance of the evidence that Mr. Madden is incompetent and unlikely to regain in the foreseeable future.
But each time he's been found incompetent in the past, he hasn't been held in jail or a mental hospital for long. His charges have been dropped, and he's back on the streets only to be charged with new crimes.
This has been going on ever since I've been doing this, and it's been scary as hell ever since I've been doing this.
Prosecutor Shane Young, the president of the Commonwealth's Attorneys Association, says mentally ill defendants like Madden are falling through the cracks.
And after a while, it's like beating your head on the wall, because you know this is going to happen again.
For Young, what's most troubling happens after some defendants are found to be incompetent. Take Madden, for example. Over the years, prosecutors have filed paperwork to have him involuntarily hospitalized to get treatment. But doctors have released him every time when he no longer meets the strict criteria of a state law known as 202A. That statute says no mentally ill person shall be involuntarily hospitalized unless he's a danger to himself or others, unless hospitalization is the least restrictive treatment, and unless he can reasonably benefit from that treatment.
That defies logic. The person we can't help, the person who's so mentally ill that they're not going to be helped, they're not going to be better, those are the ones we're required to release back into public.
An absurdity pointed out by a prosecutor during one of Madden's recent hearings.
Even if I did file the paperwork, that he would probably be released right away.
After Madden was charged with the rape of the 8-year-old, Kentucky's Department for Behavioral Health is now studying how to close the gap in the system. A system that finds defendants like Madden are too mentally ill to stand trial, but not qualified to be hospitalized indefinitely.
Given her the house called Tori Allison Lamb.
And when it comes to Madden, the signs were there.
He killed his wife by cutting her body in half to cut pieces.
Back in February, he was found to be incompetent after he was charged with another sexual assault, in which police say he bit off part of a woman's face.
He was writing letters stating that he wanted to grab a 3 to 6-year-old and have sex with her.
In May, he was arrested for burglary, which led to this recent hearing where he was also found to be incompetent.
When asked about homicidal ideation, he stated, "I want to kill someone."
That hearing happened just 24 hours before his alleged attack of the 8-year-old. Young says Madden is just one example of a statewide problem.
We see it all the time. I mean, I spent 2 days in a jury trial to make sure that people here were safe, and then the individual gets to Central State and is let go.
Young says it happens in Hardin County, for instance, about twice a year.
These crimes could be prevented if this statute would be altered.
Until then, Young believes a defendant like Madden will be released again, and the community should be worried.
I would be. I would be.
We have little children.
At this community meeting, In Louisville's California neighborhood,
We hardly go outside now.
the fear, the nerves, the frustration are so palpable.
How did this happen? How did this happen? And how can we make sure it never happens again?
The meeting happens just about a month after an unspeakable neighborhood crime where an 8-year-old playing on an iPad outside a home was hit in the head with a shovel and raped. And LMPD says this man was the attacker, 30-year-old Kane Madden.
It has touched all across Metro.
Yolanda Walker, a neighborhood leader, has started a petition to make sure Madden isn't released from custody.
Oh my God, I know I've got over 200 and something signatures.
But there's a fear he will be released because of what's happened in the past.
A little girl was attacked. I've got an 8-year-old daughter.
Senator Morgan McGarvey is working to close that dangerous gap in state law, a gap allowing some charged felons with mental illness to walk free time and time again.
This is an issue that could affect anybody in any part of the state at any time.
While he works on crafting change, he showed up here with the request.
I say this all the time. If 90% of life is showing up, 98% of your advocacy is showing up. You've got to raise your voice and be heard, and that's eventually how you get change.
These faces, their voices, and their signatures could help make that change happen.
I've been up here almost 20 years now, and we've hemmed and hawed about it. When the latest Oh Dear God case comes down the pike, at some point in time we're going to have to really look at it.
Chris Coron is the Commonwealth's attorney for Bowling Green. Friday morning, he and a colleague from Covington brought the WDRB story and their concerns to a committee of lawmakers.
This wasn't a failure of the system. This is the system we have right now.
Madden has been charged with other serious crimes in the past, but each time his charges are dismissed when he's found too mentally incompetent to stand trial. Prosecutors have tried to have him involuntarily hospitalized to get treatment instead, but doctors have released him every time when he no longer meets the strict criteria of a particular state law. And prosecutors told lawmakers Madden is just one example of a statewide problem.
The Kane Madden case is the one that's covered in the article, and I'd be willing to bet that there's at least 56 other cases across Kentucky just like it.
It's a problem they hope lawmakers will fix as soon as possible.
I hope it doesn't take another oh my God case, as we referred to it, before we will talk about this again.
After that morning meeting in Frankfort, others met here in Louisville in the afternoon to start the process of drafting a bill.
An 8-year-old Louisville girl beaten and raped in her own backyard.
Words that cannot describe it.
A man with a violent past arrested.
I'd like to see him castrated.
After a WDRB investigation exposed a gap in state law,
When the WDRB story ran, my phone started blowing up.
we continue to examine why some mentally ill people accused of violent crimes are walking free.
Because this person could be living in your neighborhood.
Tonight, we focus on what Kentucky leaders are doing to close a dangerous loophole.
In Louisville's California neighborhood, life goes on. But neighbors like Tiara are still uneasy about what police say happened here last month.
That was wrong. Why would you do that? Why would you do that to her?
An 8-year-old was playing on her iPad when a grown man fractured her skull with a shovel, then raped her in her own backyard.
I started getting paranoid. So I started looking out, my back door, looking out my windows.
Tiara is still paranoid for good reason. Even though the accused rapist, 30-year-old Kane Madden, was quickly jailed, records show he was charged with other gruesome, violent crimes in the past. In 2017, he was accused of another sex crime and for biting off a chunk of a woman's face. In 2016, he was charged with hitting a nurse at Metro Corrections and biting another at U of L Hospital. Even earlier this year, a report says he threatened to kill children after throwing a brick through a car window in the West End. He was set free each time.
If he gets released, watch yourself and watch your babies.
As WDRB News uncovered weeks ago, Madden keeps falling through this narrow gap in state law. Because the court finds him not mentally fit to stand trial, his charges are dropped. Instead, prosecutors try to have him hospitalized for treatment, but Kentucky law says, in part, that people can only be committed against their wills if they will benefit from that treatment, even if they're considered dangerous. As Kentucky lawmakers brainstorm ways to close that gap, we took a look and found that other states, including Kentucky's neighbors, have very different laws. In Tennessee, there's an extensive system in place to rehab mentally ill defendants until they're competent to stand trial. And in Indiana,
if they are found to be incompetent, they will be referred to the state hospital. In Indiana, they will stay in that state hospital until one of two things happens: until their competency is restored, where they can come back here and await trial, or in the alternative, if at the maximum, they can stay in that state hospital for the maximum amount of time that the underlying crime is. Once that time has elapsed, the state hospital can move for an involuntary commitment.
Otto Schalk is the prosecutor in Harrison County, Indiana.
In your history as a prosecutor here, can you ever remember a violent offender being released because of some loophole like what we're seeing in Kentucky?
No.
And that's a big concern back in Kentucky.
Well, quite frankly, when I share what our laws look like here, people, disbelief is what I usually get. People, their first reaction is that perhaps I misunderstand our laws here in Kentucky.
But it's no misunderstanding. Wendy Morris is the commissioner of the State Department that helps Kentuckians recover from mental illness.
Well, one of the biggest things that's happening in other states that we're not doing here is a real effort at restoring competency. We have very minimal capacity to do that. But other states have jail-based competency restoration programs. Other states have outpatient competency restoration programs, or they have physical facilities, hospitals, where they can do that restoration.
Morris says those facilities and resources just don't exist in Kentucky. And until they do, dangerous defendants like Madden will continue to walk free.
So we're busily trying to study what other states are doing, learn from their successes, learn from their mistakes.
She may not have all the answers yet, but what happened here in this Louisville backyard will keep her focused on change.
We will do everything within our power to do the right thing for everyone concerned.
In Frankfort, Chad Mills, WDRB News.
Why did you want to sit in that chair today and talk to us?
I've raised my family the best I could. I've loved my children. You know, why am I going through this? Why is he going through this?
A Kentucky father's nightmare. He says his son might kill someone because of a law even the state admits is broken.
WDRB's Chad Mills has been investigating the breakdown for months, ever since an unspeakable crime in Louisville.
Today, in a special assignment, he reveals the pain it's causing some Kentucky families.
In the friendly town of Somerset, in the heart of Kentucky.
Just a nice, laid-back kind of town. Got the car show, the lake, a lot of fun stuff.
Bob Williams has a full-time job that's not easy to talk about.
This is my own son.
As hard as it is to admit it, his full-time job is to prevent his son from killing someone.
Parents shouldn't have to go through that. You shouldn't have to call the police on your own son.
His son Trey is 33 years old, but his life changed 15 years ago.
When he was 18, he first developed paranoid schizophrenia.
This is the story of helplessness, of a vicious cycle, of a father who says his son might kill someone if Kentucky doesn't take action to make changes.
As a parent, it's hard to say that about your son.
Williams says his son has had violent outbursts over the past decade. One of the bloodiest episodes happened at an apartment complex in downtown Somerset in 2017.
He apparently hit this lady over the head with some kind of homemade club that he'd made. She stumbled into the hallway, there was blood everywhere. Subsequently, she was taken to the hospital, had either 40-something or 50-something stitches, and I was told that she had to kind of learn how to walk again after that.
Williams says he was attacked by his own son later that year.
At that moment, you thought what?
I thought he could kill somebody. I mean, I really thought he could kill me.
He doesn't want to talk about it, but Williams agreed to make his pain public to try to fix an alarming flaw in Kentucky's law. Some violent, mentally ill defendants, like his son, are walking free. He reached out after WDRB News exposed the problem earlier this year.
Words that cannot describe it.
When an 8-year-old Louisville girl was raped in her own backyard by a stranger.
That was wrong. Why would you do that? Why would you do that to her?
In that case, 30-year-old Kane Madden was arrested and charged.
I'd like to see him castrated.
A man with a long criminal past and a history of mental illness. A man who's walked free in the past because of a dangerous cycle that continues to play out across Kentucky.
Because if he gets released, watch yourself and watch your babies.
When some mentally ill defendants are declared incompetent to stand trial, their charges are dropped. Instead, prosecutors try to have them hospitalized, but Kentucky law says, in part, that people can only be committed against their will if they can benefit from that treatment, even if they're considered dangerous.
It's just so hard to understand how somebody that's incompetent can just be released out onto the street. And you're hoping and praying that there's somebody to take care of them. There's not for these people.
The man who was prosecuting the case against Trey Williams, until he had to dismiss it, is well aware of the problem. And that prosecutor, Eddie Montgomery, says he's working other cases just like it.
I have at least 4 or 5 right now pending.
On your list of priorities as a prosecutor, where does this issue lie?
I would say this issue, to me, is the biggest hole in the criminal justice system we have right now.
Another of those cases from February 2018. In it, Montgomery says an 18-year-old was driving his 12-year-old sister down this rural road in Pulaski County when suddenly they had to stop. The road in front of them was flooded, but before they could turn around, their back windshield exploded. Records say the 18-year-old driver had to duck down as a bullet pierced his headrest.
Barely misses him.
They had to duck?
Yes. I mean, just you're inches of killing. Yes.
67-year-old Danny Conley was arrested and charged, but ultimately fell through the same loophole because of mental illness.
He's indicted by a grand jury, 2 counts of attempted murder, found incompetent. We pursued our other avenues we could civilly, and he's immediately released by Eastern State Hospital after the judge ordered 360 days commitment, and within 48 hours they wouldn't let him out. Clearly by the charges, he was a danger and he was in need of treatment. He's free.
The state is now studying how to close that loophole after WDRB's investigations, and Montgomery hopes changes do come before someone else becomes a victim.
Will more people be hurt or killed?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. And my biggest fear is some of these, the next school shooter might be out there.
Williams hopes that won't be his son.
Do you ever ask God why he dealt you the hand he dealt you?
For a little over a year, when my son first had his break, God and I weren't on speaking terms. I was angry. I didn't understand it, and I didn't understand why God wouldn't heal him, wouldn't bring him back. I mean, since my son was 18, he's been gone. And I know I'll never get that same son back. Never. So yeah, man, I quit praying. I just wouldn't talk to God. And I was just like, fine. If you're not going to help me, I'm not going to do anything for you either.
But Williams came back to God, a God he now prays will guide Kentucky to change.
Right now, a bipartisan group of lawmakers is drafting a bill to address this very problem. It should be filed shortly after lawmakers return to Frankfort in January. Chad Mills, WDRB News.
For LaToya Smith, a glance at a mirror is a ride on a painful time machine.
I still feel that situation, I talk about it a lot, how much a bite
It's like a pit bull locking on you, you know what I'm saying? You can't do anything.
On a June 2017 night, she woke up to a shooting pain. According to police, someone sexually assaulted her, then bit her above her eye, removing a large chunk of her face.
He ripped my eye, about an inch perimeter around my eye. I have my eyebrows gone. I have to draw my eyebrow every day.
Police arrested this man, Kane Madden, a man whose face and name are now well known in this California neighborhood, after another newer crime.
The pain and the effects of it is severe, and it's not easy.
Madden is now accused of an August 2019 attack, the violent beating and rape of an 8-year-old just a short walk away from where Smith says she was attacked 2 years earlier.
It affects you your whole life. Your whole life.
Smith agreed to share her story for one reason. There's a chance Madden will soon be set free, just like he was in other cases, including hers. In fact, earlier this year, a judge dismissed Smith's case when she determined Madden was too mentally ill to stand trial.
If he's not able to do the time in jail, he needs to be in a mental institution. In a mental institution. He should not be let free.
As WDRB has exposed, over the years, Madden has been hospitalized for mental treatment against his will, but is released every time he no longer qualifies for that treatment, as dictated by a strict state law even the state admits is broken. Friday, that vicious cycle could continue when Madden's defense asks for the case involving the 8-year-old to be dropped.
I forgive him, but he needs to be put away. I think he needs to be put away.
Smith says the system already made her feel violated twice.
I feel more violated that he was released than I feel about him doing it.
She hopes the 8-year-old won't experience that same second dose of pain. Chad Mills, WDRB News.